Welcome in, everyone. UGA Football Live with JC Shelton. That is former Georgia tight end Arthur Lynch, former NFL tight end Arthur Lynch, historian, barber. My man, it's good to see you, buddy.
Drinking some diet ginger ale, 0 calories.
Ginger. Oh, that's what you need. I looked at you the other day and I was like, dang, man, you need to switch off that full sugar ginger ale and get something diet, a little sativa.
100%, man. You
Or
gotta stay lean.
stevia, whatever you call that. I'm not well versed in the diet soda game.
You should be, my friend.
I should I? You call me fat? Okay,
Mm.
I appreciate that. That's how we kick off the show. But Artie, it's good to see you, man. Our dogs are done with football this season. Very sombering to approach. This. I'm a hopeful guy, Artie. I'm a hopeful guy. I think you are too. A lot to be excited about. Coming back for the dogs, but man, what a game! Georgia and Ole Miss, the rematch. In New Orleans, Georgia, lost to Notre Dame there the year prior. Heading into this game, Georgia's hot. It's the defense grew up so much. Very young team, youngest team in the SEC. And Artie, if you remember, as I'm thinking about all this, and we might get here and there on rabbit trails, but if you remember, Artie, watching those early season games and talking about it, man, there was a lot awry with this team, right? So I feel like they were really good on one phase, and then would be pretty piss poor on the other phase for a game. The comeback wins, allowing 40 plus, to Tennessee and then Ole Miss. It's like, what's going on? You get your butt handed to you by Bama at home, right? So at that point, we were like, you know what? We're probably not going to win a championship, but how do you build these guys for the future? A lot of young guys, and Gunner's his first year, and then you fast forward some weeks, and you're right there in contention. Right. So it kind of switched. And I think the expectations from that point jumped up, as they should. You were playing really well. You won an SEC title. But I can't help but think, man, after what happened against Ole Miss and your season's done there, is like, I think this team overperformed. Right. I think you got a lot out of this team. And these young guys played really, really well and brought you another SEC title and gave you a shot in the quarterfinals there. And just a few plays away and probably a few decisions away from going to play in the semifinals.
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, when we live in a different world as followers of Georgia football. We now live in a different world of heightened expectations, and so those expectations are to win a national championship every year. And in reality, it's the playoff. People always say, "Oh, it's easier to make the playoff," which it is because there's more slots. But the playoff just makes it harder to get to the final, two teams. And so, which I am a proponent of the playoff. We're going to talk about it at the tail end of the show that I actually think we should expand the playoff to more teams and kind of fold in the bowl games into the more games that would be created through the larger playoff system. But fundamentally, when you're looking at this Georgia team, there was a lot of uncertainty beginning of the year. There was uncertainty around the quarterback. There was uncertainty around the playmakers around the quarterback. Really, the only thing solid was the offensive line, at least from a run blocking perspective going into the season.
Right. In special teams, I think that was really it.
Yeah. I mean, defensively, there was
Linebacker.
Linebacker, but there was a lot of question marks, and they beat Texas, they beat Ole Miss, they beat Georgia Tech, which is a good team. They beat Auburn, they beat they beat Tennessee on the road, coming back in the fourth quarter.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't beat Alabama, okay, but they came back and beat them again in the SEC championship to win the SEC championship game and get a bye, right? In hindsight, did that hurt them? Right? Had Bama beaten them, and then they go, it's like,
yeah,
we don't know, right? Because it seems that teams historically that don't get the bye actually play better. And again, it's like at the end of the day, they have won the SEC championship game for a second year in a row. They have a returning starter quarterback who is proven. they have a plethora of running backs. I know there's some rumbling that some may leave, but I'm confident that the offensive line will only be that much better this time next year. Um, and I think they are poised to have a very good season next year, right? Um, but the expectation is to win it all. Um, when people want to fire the offensive coordinators and defensive coordinators, and I've heard even people say we should make a change at the very top, which is insane. But these people are insane. I always say this: Nick Saban won 7 national championships, right? He won 7 national championships. I think the most ever, or tied for the most ever, right? He won a college football playoff championship, I believe. He won BCS national championship. I mean, you name it, right? Won it with 2 different teams. I think he was a head coach for 25 or 30 seasons in total, right? So let's say he was a head coach for 30 years, right? He won 7. That means 23 seasons he was the coach where he did not win a national championship. So by definition, by some of these fans who believe they should win it every single year, Nick Saban should have been fired on 23 different, seasons. And I think that's just like, obviously fans overreact and they don't really fully understand or appreciate the things that go into like what makes up a football season.
Mm-hmm.
But I do believe this. I still don't think that Georgia has had a, gotta have it, knockout, lights out playmaker since Brock Bowers. And that needs to change because their defense is solid. I know we can relitigate every game and go through every single snap, but I would say their defense, for all intents and purposes, like is good enough to win a national championship. And I think, to be very clear, they have the pieces on offense, and I don't think it is the play calling thing. I think they have the pieces to win a national championship on offense, but they need a dog, right? They need someone that is just like, game over.
And
And
already on that, like Zachariah Branch was the closest thing we've had since the aforementioned Brock Bowers, and
yeah,
you're losing him now.
And he wasn't even close, dude. Like, let's like.
Oh yeah, to Brock, no. I mean, like closest.
No, like look, like I'm critiquing a kid who was a better player than I was and a better athlete than I was. So it's like I get, like I am fully aware I am not lacking self-awareness, but just as someone that played and now as a fan, it's just like we. And it's clearly not the quarterback. The quarterback is solid, but he's not that, like, he's not Johnny Manziel or Lamar Jackson, right? But they need a difference maker on offense. Somebody that will just take over a game. And that's why I think it's not the offensive coordinator or even the defensive coordinator, because at the end of the day, like, they are put in position to win the game and they're putting up points and they're getting stops. But like, sometimes you just need an MFer, man, that like is going to will your team to victory, right? You see it on Indiana. They've got at the quarterback position, obviously. But I think even in Miami, like, that running back to me he's an MFer, dude, right? Or that kind of like all-purpose guy. I don't know his name, like McKenzie or something. I don't know, but I don't know. That's kind of my thought. And I was talking to some folks after the game, and some people who I played with, and who are obviously still fans, and that's the reoccurring like topic. It's like we haven't had a dude since Brock that's just like, I'm going to take this thing over. And you need that. You just need it, because if a team does have it and you don't have one, it's like you're at a disadvantage, no matter how well coached or like complete your team actually is.
Yeah, that's totally fair, man. And that's one of my thoughts that I've been, pondering is, Zach Branch is the biggest weapon you had. He was clutch many, many times throughout the season. He's gone. And where do you go there? It has to be, to me, transfer portal. That's where you landed him. So first off, hey, great hit. You evaluated that talent. You made it happen, and it really paid off for you. You're going to have to do it again. and a receiver. I mean, he pulled in a Georgia Tech receiver, 6'4", local kid, Georgia kid, Isaiah Canyon. I don't think he's that branch. He'll help. I'm still waiting on that guy for Kirby Smart to land. If you want to think it's the younger guys who've got some playing time, it could be, right? But it seems like the experience is a real difference maker for across the country. And you think about the teams that did really well this year, whether it be Indiana, Ohio State and the run they made in Oregon, those teams, Georgia up there, obviously. A lot of experienced guys that they landed in a transfer portal as opposed to young recruits, true freshmen and those guys. So who are you going to pick up to kind of be that difference maker for? And can you get somebody like that? I don't know if you have one right now, especially receiver. But so we'll finish up on Ole Miss here, though. But, I mean, I was feeling really good about the trajectory of this game based on how Georgia was moving things up front and their stops. Because remember, guys, like this defense did not play well against Ole Miss and Athens. And it was a lot worse than that game we just saw. They had more stops. They were better on third down. I think they controlled the field really well with Brett Thorson, special teams-wise, in that first half. And then Ole Miss kind of botched the clock situation at the end, didn't get any points out of it. 21-12, that's the lead you take in at halftime. This is a team that came back, this Georgia team, had to come back so many times. So you're feeling better. And then in the third quarter, you kind of coasted, right? Put up 3 points in the third quarter. They scored a touchdown. Missed a field goal, which was incredible to think about because of how automatic Peyton Wittering is. So that was a little weird. But you're like, you know what? Defense is playing well. Offense, when they absolutely want to have been moving the pile up front. Fourth quarter was just a travesty, right? You allowed 20, put up 10. You're more aggressive. Kirby Smart was pretty aggressive at interesting times. And already, like we said before the show, it's like we would be having this conversation if those chances paid off. They didn't, and that's just how things go sometimes. But defensively at the end and trying to put the bottle on Chambliss, who just was a magician in the fourth quarter already. When he did that rollout and he probably racked up 30 yards of just behind the line of scrimmage searching for an answer and pulled off that pass that really kind of changed things and put Ole Miss right in the driver's seat. I was just like, man, that reminded me of watching, Georgia try to play Bryce Young or Tua. When you're there, you made the play, and then boom, he just wiggles out of it, and you're stuck picking up the pieces. That was just incredible game by him, by the way, like 360 yards passing, multiple touchdowns. That kid played awesome. And Georgia, all things considered too, but you lose Ja'Cory Thomas on the targeting call. I can see if you say it was. I can see if you say it doesn't. I'm leaning on it wasn't targeting. Don't think he should have been kicked out of the game, but he was. And then boom, you're stuck with another safety that you don't have on the field. And at that point, Georgia's secondary was just there for the picking. Tough to see. I mean, I wish if I had to do it all over again, I'm like, hey, I wish we could have ran the ball better, much more effectively in the second half to control that game, because that's what you want to do. And Kirby Smart talks about it. Stop the run the ball. You allowed 98 yards to Lacey. He averaged 4.5 a carry. You averaged 3.4 yards per carry. But Nate Frazier, when he had the ball in his hands, he was running well. But then at the same time, you just got away from it. Gunner, I don't think he was at his best. But, man, he was scrambling for his life at times. I think Ole Miss up front already, like 51 and 52, and the interior defensive line were just having a field day. Batted passes in the passing lanes. Run for support was really good by them. So the interior of Georgia's offensive line, and you're missing Drew Bobo at that point. So It kind of makes sense, but at the same time, I mean, how you played against Bama and controlling it, you thought, hey, we've seen this Ole Miss team before, and they didn't dominate us up front like that. So we should have our way, and we just didn't. They played really well. Hats off to them and Pete Golding, but they had a lot of adversity they went through to get that done. But for Georgia, man, it's like, how do you keep these guys? I think Georgia has, for the most part, so far. And again, we got another transfer window, but right now you're keeping a lot of these young guys who grew up a lot, especially on defense. You're thinking about guys like Elijah Griffin, Ellis Robinson, Rashawn Dinkins, Chris Cole. On offense, Dontrell Glover, Malachi Tolliver, Chauncey Bones at tailback. Like, those guys grew up a lot. I think you try your best to keep them in the fold. And then, I mean, your development is why you go to Georgia. It's a big part of it, right? Because you think about playing the league development. Georgia has a track record, Kirby Smart and those assistant coaches, of taking young players and making them into stars and really reliable players. So that's what you're banking on if you're a Georgia fan, and that's I think the promise that you can see. But for me, Artie, I think in just a 80,000-foot view, it's like you had those comeback wins versus Tennessee, Auburn, Florida, Ole Miss, and the first game there, and then you just beat the brakes off of Bama in the SEC title for your second consecutive SEC championship. You won 3 of the last 4 of those. Back-to-back CFP quarterfinal appearances. The bye, we could sit and talk about the bye all night, man. We just don't know. It's like Indiana's the only team who hasn't gone through that, and they look like the best team in the country by a mile. I think they might blow out Miami. That Miami team that makes all those mistakes, they made some dumb mistakes and got away with it against Ole Miss.
Yeah.
But Indiana, I just don't see them doing that. They rarely make mistakes. They're usually always in the right spot in all phases, which is just impressive. But that I can get caught up on that, man. But that's what I'm kind of feeling from a Georgia fandom, view from me.
Yeah, no, I think missing Drew Bobo was big. I think they did not establish the run like I thought they were going to against Ole Miss.
Yeah.
But again, right, like it's only one team wins it at the end of the year, every single year. I don't think anyone was going to beat Indiana or is going to beat Indiana. They look very good. They're an old team. I think their average age is like 23 or 24, maybe even 25, like that.
Yeah.
I think this is the last year that we're going to see. I think this is like the official last year of like 6 years because I think COVID season was 21. Was that like people? If
20.
you were on the 20, but if you came in at 21, you were given like an extra year waiver. So I think that's officially over. So I think everyone should be I think like you're only going to see 5th years from here on out. It's your max like time. So I think that is also kind of an adjustment that you're going to see. And across college football, I do think we're going to see change here soon on the transfer portal. I think we're going to see dramatic change actually with college football over the next 24 months, I should say. Maybe not next year, but I think we're going to start seeing, drastic change. I think what that looks like, I think players are going to, the talk of union will be brought up. The talk of actually getting representation, like real representation, and not these kind of like quasi fake agents that are taking 20%, which is insane, of this NIL money. They're ripping a lot of these kids off. That's a different topic for a different day, but an NFL agent on average gets 3% of earnings. Why on earth would a non-certified licensed agent get 20% of a kid's earnings? Everyone should go think about that and think about all the fraud, if you will, or people who are getting taken advantage of. I think the noise around the drastic changes that need to happen within college football is getting very loud and is now gaining traction from coast to coast. There are a lot of good things about the changes in college football. I think I really don't think NIL is the issue. I think it's the transfer portal. I think that's the biggest issue. And I think that's needs to be something that gets fixed and changed immediately. You get one freebie where you can transfer, without penalty. And then otherwise you need to graduate if you want to transfer again without losing a year of eligibility. I think that will come to pass here. And when it does, I think that will fix a lot of problems. But ultimately, ratings have never been higher. Those of you who did not like the idea of the college football playoff, I think were misguided. I think anyone will tell you that this is good for the sport. I don't think anyone saw Miami going into it, right? I think Miami got hot at the right time. Yes, they have made mistakes and they've gone through the skin of their teeth, but at the end of the day, it's like I did not think they were going to beat A&M. Their defense stepped up, right? I did not think they were going to beat Georgia if Georgia went through, but they didn't get Georgia, right? They got Ole Miss. and they beat Ole Miss. And I think, I certainly didn't think they were going to beat Ohio State, and they did. And I think that's the beautiful thing, and that shows me that the college football playoff was the right move, right? That this team, who no one really thought super highly of, was, for lack of a better word, bitching. Notre Dame fans were that they got in over Notre Dame, but this team was the right team to be picked to get in, right? And I know there's a storyline with Carson Beck and all that stuff, but at the end of the day, when you're just looking at it from a macro perspective, is the college football playoff good for the sport? Yes. And I do think, and I think this is where it's going, is we're going to see an expanded college football playoff of 24 teams, and that's where this is going to go. I think they're going to look to attack the problem around the transfer portal, and then also figure out how to unionize these or make these players employees of the university, so there can start being some like guardrails around what's going on in college football, because they are now employees. Right now, they're independent contractors. That's what they are. But it's like that is not good for the player, because independent contractors, they don't get health insurance,
Nope.
right? They don't get a lot of stuff, and some players might be getting a lot of money right now, and that's great. But I think for the collective sport and for the collective athlete, we're going to start seeing regulation. And I do think, head coaches don't want to hear this, but I do think you're going to see less and less of these long-term guaranteed $100 million contracts at the coaching level, and more of that money is going to go to the players, which is probably the way it's supposed to be. Because last time I checked, Andy Reid does not make more than Patrick Mahomes, and nor should he.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's a kind of a long-winded, because I don't really want to talk about the Georgia game, to be honest with you. It's like, who cares?
Yeah.
I don't really dwell on stuff. It's like they lost. It's like, get over it, people. Like, it's not a big deal. But I am interested in college football and where it's going, and I do think we're at a fork in the road, and it'll be very interesting to see where it goes.
Yeah, I agree with where you're headed. I think the playoffs good for it. It's the transfer window for me in the calendar that it just makes no sense to any way, which way you look like it doesn't. And what you're saying about it's becoming louder is very true. It's what I see. I think more of the sports figures are pushing it more and more often because they're looking for change. And if you get that many important decision makers together on the same page, then it's going to change. That's my bet would be, and it's needed. I think you clean up the transfer portal, guardrails against NIL with, like you're saying, to protect the players. So you can do one thing that helps everyone, and it's protecting the players there, especially with the agents and how they're operating too, and the free for all there. But also, some guardrails for the teams themselves and programs who spend a lot of money to sign a guy to a rev share deal for a year, and then 4 days later he's transferring out. There has to be some responsibility taken if those players are going to be on the pedestal making money, dependent upon. There has to be some guardrails there, I think, for them just to be responsible. Like what life lessons that's football is too. You hear it all, and RD's had some great coaches. I had some good coaches too, and obviously lower levels, but preparing you for life and the things that you deal with over a football season, preparation for that football season and everything. What are you teaching these guys if you make a commitment and you can back off at any time? That's a crazy way to think about it too, and that's not how the NFL works either. So that's you can take advantage of it now, but it feels wrong.
But I mean, look, it's if the window. It's a great point about the calendar. I didn't think about that.
And I'm talking about signing. I'm talking about signing because, I mean, the Washington quarterback's a great example of it just this last week. I'm talking about signing a rev share deal to come back the next year, and then whoever comes calling with $1 million more, and you can just enroll at that school without any penalty.
Yeah, no, it's. I mean, well, you're starting to see some clawbacks too. I know since like the
Right.
Cincinnati quarterback has to, and that's you're going to start seeing more of that.
And it
We
has to be
saw
enforced, right? It has to be enforced. Nobody's enforced
yeah,
it yet.
well, if you sign a legal contract, that that's the you'll get sued. So
Yeah.
there,
Good.
you'll end up. No,
Good.
I agree with you. But the calendar thing's interesting. Like everyone was giving grief to um Lane Kiffin,
Yeah.
and I like didn't understand why because I was like, this happens every year. Like ads fire their coach super early, and then they go to try to hire their coach, the coach that they want, like right away.
Mhm.
Um, it's the SEC. Did anyone not think this thing was gonna like be secret? It's Ole Miss for Christ's sake. It's one of their rivals, right?
Yeah.
Like, is it? And everyone's like, "Oh, I can't believe it." And from my understanding, you wanted to stay, and I think the AD from Ole Miss made the right choice. He's like, "No, like you can't, you cannot stay." And which I think was the right move. Like they had to move on and like conduct their own search and give Golding a shot. And Golding ended up being the right guy. I thought he did a great job.
Yeah.
But it's like like there should also be guardrails around the calendar for the coaching carousel as well, right? Carousel as well, right? Like, okay, if you want to, and what's his name's not gonna like this. The agent, the CAA, what's the name? Who's the super agent? Who's
I know what you're talking about.
Jimmy Sexton? Like Jimmy Sexton's not gonna like this, but there will be a window, right? If you want to pursue a coach, like that's why the NFL it runs so efficiently. Like if you want to pursue a coach who's currently employed, you have to like go to the owner and you have to like get permission, and they can't say no unless there's something in the contract that they like a no trade clause or whatever it is. But it's like this is if you're gonna play the game of we're paying the players, we're paying these coaches $100 million, the schools are making a ton of money, the TV contracts are out the wazoo, they're only getting bigger. Then like let's professionalize the sport, right? And because it's already professionalized, right? Right now it's a bunch of mercenaries, and that's fine. But it's like it needs to change, and it's going to change. Like mark my words, it is changing soon. But it was interesting because Kirk Street, they were doing their college game day. They were all at the Rose Bowl, and like Kirk Street was like, "Hey, commissioners of each league, you need to get this guy in a room with you," pointing to Nick Saban, and like start figuring out the best way forward. And what that tells me is Kirk Herbstreit has obviously had like long, drawn out, detailed, un you know uncensored conversations with Nick Saban about where Nick Saban thinks the game of football or college football should go. And clearly Kirk Herbstreit, who's probably the resident expert of the sport, given his experience in the past 30 years, is like, yeah, this guy needs to run the thing. Right. And I think that's right. I think Nick Saban obviously has a business acumen, right? Obviously, he's got the car dealerships, the real estate stuff. Like we can joke about it, but he obviously understands business.
Mhm.
He has been in the NFL. He has ties to the Hill, right? Because there needs to be some legal legislation that gets passed. He grew up with a U.S. senator, for Christ's sake, right? Obviously, he's well in tune with the politics of the state of Alabama. But I think, like, the NCAA needs to, if they want to call it like NCAA college football league, like whatever it is they call it, fine. But they need to get someone like Nick Saban to run it like the NFL runs their their league, right?
Yeah,
Like
I agree.
it has to be done. Like if you want to go poach Lane Kiffin, like for instance, if I don't know, you're Michigan, right? Or Ohio State. Ryan Day retires next year. Ryan Day goes to the Eagles, right? Goes to the NFL. And Ohio State wants to go pluck like, I don't know, a big time coach, right? Like or Golding, right? This time next year, like Ohio State needs to petition to the league, like we are interested in the, like Coach Golden, and like okay, well you have to wait until January 21st because that's when the national championship game is over, and you have a 2 week window to interview your coaches that are not playing, right?
Yeah.
And that's how it works. And I'm pretty sure in the NFL, every single time a coordinator gets the job at another head coaching job, and if he's in the Super Bowl, he still coaches that game.
Yeah.
And right now, it's lawless. It's lawless all around. It's lawless for the ads, it's
Yeah.
lawless for the players, and it's lawless for the coaches. And
Yeah.
it just doesn't make any sense.
No. You've got those
It's
things happening while teams are competing for championships. That's just
it's
it.
crazy.
And then for Lane Kiffin, I get what you're saying because that was the time if he was going to make the move, had to do it then.
Yeah, like what
What is he going to do? He's going to let the transfer portal pass so he can't even build the team for next year?
But and you saw what happened. Like his quarterback Chan in the running back. They decided to stay, and so he's like, "Shit, now I gotta go find." Like, you know what I mean? Like, it does not make. And I'm not defending Lane Kiffin. I'm sure he was not
A saint about the whole situation.
But if LSU comes calling, you're answering that call.
Yeah.
That's like it's insane to pass up.
Right.
Les Miles, Nick Saban, and Ed Orgeron all won national championships. And Brian Kelly, who has no idea that he was even in the state of Louisiana, won 10 games each first season. He had no, like, let's be honest, that was a bad hire because he's not a Southern guy. But he still won.
Yeah.
Dude, coached a Heisman winner. I don't even know if LSU has had a Heisman winner, right? Like, so that is a job that is like, you can't pass up. So at least let him finish his job at Ole Miss and not make it so it's like he's got a gun to his own head, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know. I just think that there needs to be something in place, and that something is a commissioner, and that commissioner of college football needs to figure out, work with the league commissioners, university presidents, athletic directors, and elected officials to come to the table and be like, okay, we need to not save the sport. The sport's going to be fine, but just like, we need to regulate this, protect the players, but also like hold the players accountable and also hold the coaches accountable and move this thing forward. And I think
absolutely
we'll see where it goes, but that's what I think is where it's coming to.
Artie Lynch, assistant to the commissioner of college football.
Yeah,
that's what we need right there, baby. Come on.
I'm into it. You don't have to pay me. Just give me free tickets.
Yeah, and me too. I'm your assistant. So, okay. Hey, speaking of portal, we'll touch on that for Georgia, and then we'll get into Indiana, Miami. Yeah, so transfer portal for Georgia. Keep the young guys in the fold, especially the ones that really grew over the season. And obviously, depth has become just few and far between everywhere in college football. It really feels like. But for Georgia, the way you want to control the game up front and play good defense and things, you need depth for it. So that's, I think, if you want to continue to try to play that and win games that way, that's the key for Georgia this year. You're already losing Janelle Aguero, Daniel Harris, Jaden Harris, Andre Evans, Roderick Robinson, Jordan Thomas up front at defensive line. Linebacker Chris Jones, that one kind of hurts. I think he came on strong, but trying to play multiple positions, but I really liked him as a rusher. And then Nair Daniels. You've picked up, and I love this addition here, Artie, because you think about the safety, the depth there, really put Georgia into some bad situations this year with really good opposing quarterbacks and strong athletes at receiver. So you've added Khalil Barnes from Clemson. I mean, he grew up right down the road from Georgia, the campus. Played really well for Clemson. I think he was a freshman All-American a couple of years ago. So you added him. And then Jamari Riddle from ECU is a safety as well. Braylon Conley from USC. He's at corner. And then Amaris Williams from Auburn, defensive line. And then Isaiah Canyon, who we mentioned earlier from Georgia Tech, 6'4" receiver. Made some plays last year as well. Like to pick up so far, man. We're still searching. I think you need that game breaker, man, on offense. So hopefully that happens. There's a lot of time for Georgia to make that move, but with every day that passes, those key guys are going right. They get taken up quickly. I will say so as far as guys who are back that are big important and didn't really test the transfer portal waters or NFL. Gabe Harris, he was injured against Ole Miss, and great to have him. But Gabe Harris back on the edge, Raylan Wilson on inside, man. That's big for Georgia to get him back because CJ Allen's gone. So you got Raylan Wilson in there on inside, and then Xavier McLeod as well on the defensive line. Again, so I like to see more pick as a receiver. Offensive line, offense-wise, you're losing Oscar Delp already. We're big Oscar Delp fans here. Dude, kid's a stud. I can't wait to see him play in the NFL, and I think he'll do well because how much he's grown as a blocker on top of his pass catching.
100%.
He was in great shape this year too, with the ball in his hands. Moved really well. Lawson Lucky has a decision to make. Micah Morris and Monroe Freeling. Micah Morris is gone. Monroe Freeling and Ernest Green, they have decisions to make for the NFL. Haven't heard yet. If they come back, obviously big at tackle, both spots there. But you have to prepare that they're not going to be back right now, I think. So a lot of unknowns, obviously, and we'll get to see how this all plays out from a roster building standpoint already. But you certainly want to see game breaker on offense. I think we agree on that. And then defensively, man, the pass is really what killed you against those good quarterbacks. Even when you go back, let's say first game against Alabama, we got picked apart, and then Ole Miss allowing nearly 400 yards to Chambliss. So what does that mean? I think beyond just experience in the back end and knowing where you're supposed to be, because there were some issues with alignment in that Georgia Ole Miss game where the safety's on the wrong side of the field. And then also additionally up front, right? Havoc Reekers up front and getting those quarterbacks uncomfortable. That's what I want to see as a fan. CFP thoughts already Indiana. Good grief. They're so efficient, man. I think I was saying it before the show, not on it, but they're so efficient, man. All three phases. They don't really make mistakes. They are like for Mendoza, his guys are exactly where that he thinks they're going to be. And he throws it with anticipation. Their offensive lines are just full of studs. Pass pro, running the football. Defensively, they pick six the first play against Oregon. They've intercepted on the first drive multiple times this year. They're very prepared. I don't see Miami unless they clean up all those mistakes they made the other night. I don't see Miami doing enough to beat Indiana right now. How much they're rolling, which is incredible.
Yeah, I mean, if they clean up their mistakes, Miami definitely has a talent to win the game. Just because they got some, those dudes can push people around.
Right, where were they at in Ole Miss though? I mean, Chancellor's got
dude. There's a couple.
The ball out so quick that they basically rendered that defensive line useless.
I'm talking about their offensive line, dude.
Oh yeah.
Dude, their offensive line was moving people.
Yes, they played really well.
And they were moving people.
That running back too, number 4.
Yeah. No,
he's a stud.
Miami has the talent to beat Indiana. I don't know if they have the discipline.
Perfectly said.
And first off, I'm patting myself on the back because I remember distinctly saying that Cristobal was going to get this team rolling.
You did.
And you're like, I don't know, man. And
I don't know.
I was like, no, dude. I was like, that guy. He was rolling at Oregon. And he understands like the type of identity that he wants his teams to have. And, he just, it's big physical offensive lineman with a front seven on the defensive side of the ball that's going to play fast and physical and get after the quarterback, but they got to be disciplined. Right. And I don't know if they will be. One thing that you could say about Indiana is they play disciplined football. They do not turn the ball over, and they make adjustments on the fly. I mean, if you watch the first two if you watch like the first half of the Alabama game was not indicative of the score, right? Alabama let up. Um, they went on it for 4th and 1 and didn't get it, and they had a turnover. But they sacked Mendoza on the first two drives, and they were pretty much stalling them. But what Indiana did a great job of is they were not flustered, right? They did not get flustered after getting sacked the first two times and punting the ball in the first two possessions, and they capitalized on the mistakes of Alabama. They come into the second half, they make those adjustments, and Alabama clearly did not make the adjustments, and it was, I mean, a massacre, right? And what that told me is like everyone was like, "Oh my God, they're getting blown out," blah blah, and they were getting blown out. But I was like, if you watch the whole game, and I did watch that whole game, you're like, "Oh no, what Indiana is showing us, or at least showed me, is that they understand when things aren't working, they know how to quickly adjust and fix things on the fly and then get back to regular schedule programming after making those adjustments." And
Yeah.
and typically, historically speaking, that's like the Alabama Nick Sabans of the world. It's like, oh, we have to make adjustments at halftime. We're going to make the adjustments, and then we're going to go roll whoever. And to be fair,
Yeah.
Georgia has done that in the years past too.
Yeah.
And I think Kirby still does a really good job of that, as seen by some of their second half wins this year. Um, but to me, Miami is too up and down from like a discipline
Right.
aspect of it. But
Yep.
if they play their best football, Miami, they could beat them for sure. I just don't know. I think they were so much more talented than the Ole Miss. And I think they played a complete game against Ohio State, and that's
Yeah.
why they beat Ohio State.
Right.
But like, I don't know if they would have played the same game against Georgia as they did Ole Miss. I think Georgia wins, right? But yeah, that's just my thought. But I definitely think that talent wise, they're probably more talented. I just don't know if they're a complete football team that's going to be able to go toe to toe with Indiana, who is just playing flawless football
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah. I'm on the same exact page looking at this game. And I expect, and you saw this with Oregon too. I expect Mendoza to get that ball out very quickly to just render that defensive front from Miami pretty much useless, other than in the run game, because that's what I saw Ole Miss do that had some success. Just ball was out very, very quick. And Chambliss, for the most part in that game, was untouched. I think Mendoza has that, or maybe even more anticipation than Chambliss, and maybe pre-snap a little bit more. Um, I think he's really good in that area. Very, very smart kid, obviously. So I expect him to kind of roll in just quick passes. Now, on the flip end of that, I mean, Carson Beck is, I mean, he's not, he'll make a mistake every now and then. I think he played great the other day, but listen, my Indiana, you said it there earlier, they capitalize on that stuff.
Yeah.
And you give them some extra possessions, I think it's going to be a very long day for the Hurricanes. So, I mean, honestly, I look at this, already, I don't think Georgia beats Indiana. They could have maybe beat Miami. That would have been interesting with that defensive front, having to deal with that for Gunner and such. But yeah, I think if Georgia going to got there, man, it would have been all she wrote, because I think Indiana's that good. Now, I wasn't sold on them all year. I needed to see them play some good teams and in some big moments, and I have, and I'm very impressed. And props to the paychecks in Indiana for going out and getting some guys, but also for Signetti putting together that team, because I mean, you're going to be able, you can buy your rosters now. I get it. I understand. You can't. Anybody can. Georgia can, just like Indiana can. But putting it all together, right, and having that efficiency. Now, will Indiana do the same thing over and over again? Probably not, because you have to remember that a lot of these guys have been with Signetti for 3 years, even back from the JMU days. So those guys are going to graduate. They're not going to always be that way. But
I think a lot of people are putting way too much stock in the NIL money of like Indiana, the money, like no, like their biggest contributors outside Mendoza, but their running back, that receiver, the Becker or Decker, something like that, and then they linebacker number 4, like those dudes are all JMU guys. Like they got they brought 14 people over from JMU.
Yeah.
Like I think the quarterback they brought last year was okay. I think Mendoza was a player at Cal, and Cal had nobody around him, right?
Hmm.
So that was like I think he got himself a real quarterback, and then he got the offensive center from Notre Dame who was solid, right? They got players, but it's not like they you know did what Ohio State did and just like rolled out 25 additional million on top of the 25 million they get
Yeah.
and said like you know go buy me a team. Like yeah, they did NIL, but to your point, this guy he found the players that he needed to make the team in the image that he saw it, right?
Hmm.
And I think he did that really well last year, but he was like, I need a few pieces, right? And I think we all know what the piece was, and that was quarterback, the most important position in
Right.
football.
Absolutely.
And Mendoza, he's a Heisman winner. He's probably going to win a national championship, and all the scouts love him because they're like, dang, this kid can throw,
Yeah.
he can run, he's 6'5", he's 230, and he's smart as he's a quirky dude, a little goofy, but who
Yeah.
cares? Dude
I
can
mean,
play, man. And he's
give me,
tough.
yeah, give me the quirky guy other than like Shadur Sanders. Give me the give me the quirky guy. Give me the
Okay.
guy. Yeah,
But
he seems like he's hilarious to listen to, but I can't help but pull for him.
I like him, man. So I'm with you. I think Indiana wins. I think they went big.
Yeah, I'm on the same page, man. Well, hey, Artie, so if you want to get into your expansion idea, which you mentioned a little bit, some more, have at it, my man. The last thing you'll get from me here is please, I might have to mute it, but the storylines coming about Carson Beck and the woe is me, all the adversity, dude. I am not here sitting here to tell you that that elbow injury was easy. That's not what I'm saying. That's tough, man. Artie, you've been hurt. It's not easy. Um, for the spot that he was in to go through that and have to recover and then come back to college, right? But let's not sit here and act. And this has become a national narrative somehow. And Kurt and Chris Fowler were just pushing it too. I'm not blaming them, but it's just I guess they had drank the Kool Aid. But to say that Carson Beck was just abused at Georgia is ridiculous. 24-3, part of two national titles teams, another SEC championship. Played the first half of the other SEC championship that we won last year. I mean, he was great. He was great at Georgia overall, right? The issue there, he chose to leave. He chose to declare the draft, didn't get the grade he wanted. By the time he came back, which was no communication to Georgia in that time, he chose to do that. And he chose that route. And then when he came back, he found out that Georgia had moved on, which you have to. We just talked about the calendar already. You have to make a decision. Your guy's going. You're not going to know for a week if he's actually going to go through with the draft or he's just want to get a grade or whatever. But he declares anyway. You have money to spend, dude. You got to get guys locked in. And if you know you're not going to pay Gunnar Stockton $4 million, you're going to take some of that money and give it to another guy, right? Zach Branch, whoever it is, in the transfer portal, and then you're boom. I guess we're moving forward with Gunnar. So Georgia made their decision. Carson made his, and then he comes back and gets a chance to go play at a very talented Miami team for $5 million or whatever he's making. It's pretty dang good. So good, all good, but let's just not act that it's this woe is me story. Happy for him to get this opportunity, and maybe he'll play well, and maybe something will happen. But anyways, I'll get off my soapbox for you there, Artie.
I'm going to save my playoff thing for a full show down the road.
Okay.
But I think it would be good to walk through how
Yeah.
it would work, and I'm kind of working on like the different bowl games and how they would be named and all that stuff. But
Yeah.
the good thing is there's a lot of potential for the sport of college football with an expanded playoff, with regulation. It's only going to get better because think about it. It's a shit show right now, and I still love it. And people are still watching it, right?
Right.
And when it gets to be more succinct and the scheduling's on, and they'll they'll probably move spring ball, push it back. They'll put academic calendars aligned with everything, and it'll make a lot more sense. It'll be a lot more fluid. I think it'll be an awesome product. But right now, people are just like they're getting all these changes thrown at them, and they've been. To be fair, let's call a spade a spade. I think for all the shit show between the NIL being a court case that ruled in their favor, the transfer portal court case ruled in the players' favor, and It went from like a very strict NCAA led sport to like all hell broke loose. And I think the individual schools have actually handled it pretty well. But now I think people are like, okay, we've seen this now a couple different times, a couple different years, and we still love the sport. But like, I think everyone, players included too, I think, because I think everyone wants some unified, not change, but structure. And I think we'll get it. But we'll see.
Yeah, no, I can't wait. I think people are going to love to hear your breakdown of that because I really enjoyed it, hearing a little bit about what your mindset was there. So I think we could see something like that. So we'll get into that next show and let you lay it out, man. Talk it through.
Let's do it.
Everyone, thanks so much for listening. Wherever you're on, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Twitter, which is X now. I don't know if you knew already. It's actually called X now. And wherever you're getting us, hey, leave a comment if you have an idea on how to kind of clean up some of this stuff in college football and it's interesting. I'll read it on the show next time. So drop that wherever you're at, whatever platform you're on. Artie, I appreciate your time, man. We'll talk to you soon. Safe travels. Ski trip, Artie. 6'6" out there with skis. That's pretty scary. But go Dogs, man.
We're humming down the mountain. Don't you worry.
I bet.
Go Dogs.
All right, man. See ya.